Okay, so this is from Now This, and the video is called "The Significance of Illinois Ending Cash Bail." And this is so significant, fam, because anyone not familiar with sort of the basics of abolitionism may not be aware that bail basically just serves as a way to punish people for being poor and then really forces them into further poverty. If you're already poor and you can't afford to pay the bail to get out of jail, whether you have actually committed the crime or not, because remember, if you're in a bail situation, you haven't been convicted of anything. But if you can't afford it, you may be forced to stay in jail. And then what does that mean? You don't go to work the next day. And especially in a pandemic, where people's ability to actually maintain a job during this pandemic is even more limited. You could lose your job. And then now you have fines and you've paid your fines and then, you've done time and now you've lost your job. And whatever it was you were there for, there's going to be a price attached to that. Anyway, it compounds, fam. It compounds. And it's just, it's ridiculous. And here's another thing too that I want to point out that there's so much crucial stuff that's covered in this video. But one other thing that it doesn't cover is that when you're unable to make bail, you appear before the court and before the judge in whatever county issued or state issued clothing. Okay, and you come in shackles more often than not, and so you already take on the physical appearance of some type of criminal. That's why when you see like wealthy people, like all the people that Trump pardoned, or someone like a Harvey scumfuck Weinstein, like these types of people, where they come to court in suits and not shackled, that's because they had enough to make bail. And they could go home and they could put on clothes to come to court. But they could also, now again, if you're poor, you can't go home and maintain your life. It's completely on hold. And if you're already living a precarious fucking working class or poor lifestyle, there's in many ways no recovering from that. And so a lot of times people will just plead guilty to something so that they can get out of jail to get back to their job and get to their life, whether they may have done it or not. And anyway, this is a really fantastic piece from Now This. Not always the most reliable source, but this piece is great. And here we go.
Be the main determining factor in whether somebody will be in or out of jail. Courts can more clearly make decisions about who should be in and who should be out.
Illinois becomes first state to end cash bail. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker signed a sweeping criminal justice reform bill this week, including ending cash bail for release from jail.
This legislation marks a substantial step toward true safety, true fairness, and true justice. The changes that will be brought about by this new law will bring more justice and more fairness to many who have so often been forgotten.
Sharon Mitchell Jr. is the director. Sorry, hold on. Let me back that up just a little bit. Sharon Mitchell Jr. is the director of the Illinois Justice Project and has been fighting to end the practice.
One justice system for folks that are out that actually get the opportunity to participate in their offense, and another justice system which incentivizes people to plead guilty, not because they believe that they've done something wrong, but because they just want to get out of jail.
Cash bail has been called a poor people's tax by critics and has left some people who are unable to afford bail detained for extended periods as they wait trial. It also disproportionately affects people of color.
The vast majority of people who touch the criminal justice system will come out. They will have to operate in our society, and too often we put them in worse positions. So the studies are clear. Short-term detention actually makes it more likely that a person will be rearrested.
While Illinois is the first state to end cash bail entirely, other states have restricted its use. A 2018 study from New Jersey found jail population was significantly reduced, and their return for court appearances stayed nearly the same. Mitchell says cash bail can set someone back in different ways. You catch that? Let's back that up. and the return for court appearances stayed nearly the same. Clearly, I'm sure there was some type of drop in people who made it to court. I'm sure that there was some more people who didn't come to court when they were supposed to. Okay? But stayed nearly the same. That shows me that that number was marginal and insignificant. That the vast majority of people appeared for their court cases. Like, people don't want to let that shit, either if they got killed, if they are guilty of it, they want to move on, get it taken care of and move on. Or if they're not, they want to prove that they're not and have that opportunity to do so. Rarely do people take off. And usually flight risk is determined and no bail is set. It's like, no, you're staying here and there's no bail. If it's determined by the court that there's a significant reason to think that you're a flight risk, then you just keep the person in jail. But the vast majority of cases that come before our civil, criminal, justice courts and whatever, they're not flight risks. These are people who are going to come to court and appear and do what they got to do to deal with what's going on with this interaction and this interaction with the state mechanisms of law. Right? Anyway, let's get back to it. Mitchell says cash bail can set someone back in different ways.
What studies tell us is that when you put somebody in jail, especially in a short-term period, that you're actually increasing the criminogenic factors that exist in their life. For example, I saw the public defender all the time. When somebody would go to jail for a few weeks, they would lose their job if they had a job. They would, if they had to pay rent, they would get behind rent. If they had anything going on in terms of education, that would be lost. So you do that short-term jailing, that person comes back out, and they're in a worse place than they were before.
Mitchell says ending cash bail does not mean everyone will be released. It simply means judges can't use money as a factor for detainment.
Too often people think about this as just kind of like a release, just about release, that everybody will be released. I think we believe that there'll be more folks that will be released, but we also feel like we'll make better decisions about who should be and who shouldn't be. The current situation allows money to make that decision, and I think the consensus is that that's a bad way of determining incarceration.
The end of cash bail will be rolled out slowly and take full effect in 2023. All right, what's going to queue up next here, fam, which will probably be preceded by an ad, of course, is a Vice piece, and I don't cover or share a lot of Vice stuff. They're so unpredictable. Sometimes they do really great work. Sometimes it's absolute dog shit. And it's hard to tell, but what you're going to get, and that's because they just have so many people that are contributing to them. And anyway, but this piece is just really fantastically done. And I'm gonna read along with the opening part, and then I'm just gonna let it play, and then I've got some music video queued up, and then we'll get into some vinyl and look at some art. But this really just struck me as powerful and very well put together, and the instant I saw it, I wanted to share it on a What the Fuck Report. So actually, I'm gonna go ahead and read the description. Like I said, it's from Vice. Description is very short. As wildfires tore through parts of Oregon, the state's only women's prison was evacuated. We animate the story from one inmate who says they had to riot to get basic essentials. The prison wildfire evacuation that led to a riot. On September 10, 2020, a staff at Coffee Creek Correctional Facility evacuated 1,303 inmates because of the massive wildfires in Oregon. On September 16, 2020, one inmate, Lori Mosley, mailed this essay from the prison. This is her voice.
We were cuffed in pairs, sardines in a square steel can. Behind us, hundreds of women filled the plastiform benches of multiple buses, vans, and Brinks trucks. Many women haven't left the facility in decades. They exist in a state-operated time capsule. Most haven't seen a car in years, except for the small, wide economy model that circles the outer edge of the razor wire fence. 24 hours, 10 miles per hour, over and over, looking like a lost pizza delivery driver. We had questions. Can I bring a towel? What about my medication refill? Can I bring a Bible? Will there be telephones? All inquiries were met with, you need to shut up and listen. Soon we were merging into end-of-the-world traffic. Women grabbed the edges of their seats. Throttle, brake, throttle, brake. The women worried about their friends and families. These are the connections that hold the lifeline to the free world. No family visits since February. A hug would be great. Smoke from the fires made visibility minimal. I noticed the driver's seatbelt swinging with the momentum of the accelerator. Shit, no seatbelt. Hell, we didn't have seatbelts on either. If he lost control, we'd bounce around like a jar full of crickets. Over the edge and down the canyon. I sat back and closed my eyes. Throttle, brake, corner. Throttle, brake. Man, I really needed to pee. The speaker was blasting Shania Twain, telling me, feels like a woman. I didn't even feel human. I found out later women in the other vehicles were peeing in cups, vomiting. A few had to change their menstrual products and were instructed to throw tampons out the window. I'm guessing they didn't feel like women either. We arrived at Deer Ridge Correctional Facility. My need to urinate was all I could handle. The truck came to a stop and the officers got out. They started eating pizza and smoking cigarettes. Really? Union break time? I stood outside the open door. 20 feet away was 2 restrooms. I could see the promised land. 2 officers stood as gatekeepers. I looked over my right shoulder to see a woman bent over with her hand cupping her crotch. Officer, can we please use the restroom? She didn't answer. I asked again, hey, we're about to pee ourselves. She responded, go ahead, I'm not stopping you. There's the concrete. The 2 officers laughed. Another officer graciously obliged. I overthanked him. I felt like the woman who washed Jesus' feet with her tears and dried him with her hair. It was a form of salvation he was providing us. Then suddenly it was Aretha Franklin stuck in my head singing, you make me feel like a natural woman. My unit didn't get to bed until 1 a.m. No towels, no showers with hot water, no shower curtains, the stalls visible to officers both female and male. Many toilets not flushing, women without beds, sleeping on the floor. The next day, no phone, no email, no TV news channel, no way of knowing about the well-being of our friends, family, or homes. They brought in a few cases of maxi pads, tampons, and toilet paper, an appeasement offering. The next day, the unit officer yelled, lock down, back to your cells. I had a view across the yard into the area where some women were out using yard phones, watching television. They weren't on lockdown. We wanted to talk to our families too and watch the news. We wanted medical attention and food. I yelled, bullshit! I yelled for phones and for the firing of the officer who stood between me and the toilet. Then the women in my section began yelling, fuck the police. We want towels. Fuck the police. It looked like a very strange Mardi Gras. Women ran out of their rooms without shirts, throwing tampons, maxi pads, and toilet paper rolls. We were sending back their gifts. Some women didn't do anything. They said, we're better than this. I say, no, we're not. You can't get better than this. We were rioting, and it felt good.
Come on.
The administrator ordered the cell doors closed. They hauled off 5 women bound in handcuffs. Then the officers pushed a wheeled cart through the doorway. On it was a large screen TV. We cheered, yelling, thank you. They opened our doors. Within a few hours, a large supply of towels and vinyl shower curtains rolled in. Then they brought in a pile of sack lunches. They let the 5 women who were arrested go. Finally, they brought us paper, pens, shampoo, and a change of clothes. We took back our dignity. Shania Twain still playing in my head.
Mosley confirmed that inmates were allowed to bring medication with them. In January, she was released. Vice News asked CCCF and the Oregon Department of Corrections to respond to the allegations laid out in Mosley's essay. The Department of Corrections sent this statement, quote, mistakes were made and adults in custody were more than inconvenience, but staff made rapid adjustments to address the unexpected and the unanticipated. Department of Corrections also did many things extremely well. Wow, they said that about themselves. They did things extremely well. Astounding. guess it depends on what your interpretation of extremely well is. A spokesperson said the Department of Corrections wasn't aware of a protest or riot led by female inmates, but confirmed that approximately 200 men protested at the same facility. Jesus Christ, it's like patriarchal preference to even factions of rioting fucking human beings enslaved for profit. The Department of Corrections shared letters from inmates who were sympathetic to CCC staff during the evacuation. One person wrote, quote, "We were shown that if the building was on fire, would we get left? No. Which is a question us inmates ponder every once in a while." Interesting. There you go, fam. That's from Vice News. Now, what's queuing up next is a fucking sick-ass video by Agathocles, available over at the YouTube channel Death by Digital. Enjoy. The song's called A for Arrogance. Fucking love it, man.